Hey everyone, Nate the effing Great here. I am indeed here talking about another wrestling pay-per-view. I'm actually doing a review of No Surrender 2008. Reason why I'm doing this is because it's California on my Twitter. For those of you that have not seen, I have actually been doing a lot of deals where I've been taking pictures from SoCal Val's official Instagram website, posting them up on my Twitter, giving my opinions, my thoughts, everything like that. And one of the reasons why I've picked No Surrender 2008 is because it is indeed a pivotal moment for SoCal Val. I'll explain more in detail, but I figure instead of just reviewing the one moment there, I talk about the event in its entirety. So let's just dive right into it, talking about it. This actually took place in Oshawa, I believe it is. Oshawa, Ontario, Canada, and it was a pretty interesting pay-per-view, and this was also during a bit of a rough time for America, because during this time we had to deal with Hurricane Ike, and Hurricane Ike hit the Gulf Coast as well as the southern part of the United States, so we had to deal with that, and trust me, that does come into play into this show. But honestly, you guys, starting off Bound for Glory was a great hype package, and it talked about the 4 Ways to Glory matchup, a fatal 4-way matchup for the world title, in which you would have Kurt Angle versus Booker T versus Christian Cage versus the world champion himself, Samoa Joe. And one of the things that I really enjoy about this is that they really just hit a lot of crucial points when it comes to each of the competitors. They talked about, Christian's faith, not his religious faith, but more about his faith that he had since coming to TNA, because so many other promotions, WWE, just really didn't have any faith in him whatsoever. And now that TNA had faith in him, he was a former 2-time world champion. Kurt Angle's sacrifices, just everything that he did, broken bones, 2 neck surgeries, everything that he went through to just be the best performer that he could be in TNA. Booker T's determination, battling, the skepticism that a lot of people had, his background, his past, just proving everybody that he can indeed, not only change, but also be one of the best competitors in the world, and also Samoa Joe's groundbreaking ability. This is basically talking about how Samoa Joe went from just being what seemed to be just this big guy, and he just was busting out moves left and right. He showed technical prowess. He showed high-flying prowess. He definitely showed a great deal of just showing that, hey, he's a big guy. He can do this stuff. He definitely is not what he seems to be. And we opened the show actually with Sting. Sting basically said that he was going to be at at Sacrifice to talk about a few things. First thing that he mentioned was that he was going to be fighting against the winner of the 4 Ways to Glory match at Bound for Glory. So we basically have one part of the main event slated for that event. But he also talks about the Young Guns and respect. Now, what I mean about the Young Guns is the younger talent in TNA. So during this time, Sting was talking about how some of the young bucks, some of these young guys have been walking around thinking like, oh, they're the greatest things since sliced bread, and that they've done everything that they've done, and that they are better than everybody. And that makes them into, he's mentioned them as being, spoiled little kids, and to just spoiled little brats, and he's there to basically bring them back down from Cloud 9 to planet Earth. And he also talks about the fact that they've been very disrespectful to legends like him and Booker T and so many other people. And he also kind of ended that with talking about how, he's going to make everybody in the company respect him, just like the people in Canada respected a great native known as Bret Hart. Now, he actually mentioned the fact that about 11 years ago from that time that Bret Hart was basically screwed. So you can definitely imagine that since they're in Canada, there's probably going to be some "you screwed Bret" chants. And trust me, there is. but we'll get into that when we get to it. So after all this, Sting leaves, and then Mike Tenay, Don West, they talk about the Four Ways to Glory matchup, and they mention the fact that TNA management tried their hardest to get Booker T to the event, but unfortunately the powers that be would not allow that because of everything that went on with Hurricane Ike. It was just a huge natural disaster that devastated a lot of people, and it was one of the reasons why Booker T could not make it to the show. They then followed up by talking about the card's rundown, and we get started with a 6-man tag team match. Well, actually, I shouldn't say 6-man tag. It was actually a 6-person tag match. It was the Rock and Rave Infection. It was Christy Hemme, Lance Hoyt, and Jimmy Rave taking on the Prince Justice Brotherhood of Super Eric, Shark Boy, and Curryman. Now, I also want to state this, you guys, that I actually was a bit of a fan of the Rock and Rave Infection. I thought that these guys had a pretty interesting gimmick, that they were entertaining. They definitely got a reaction from people. I really liked that so many times they would just have, Christy Hemme just doing her, kind of rockish song type deal, and then Jimmy would follow it up by just saying like the wrong city. This time I think it was, thank you, Ontario City, Ontario. It was just always funny to see that. So the fact that they just got so, oh my gosh, they were definitely not treated right in TNA, and I think that they should have at least deserved, one tag team title run. That's just my opinion. So the Prince Justice Brotherhood, like I said, it contains Super Eric, one of the alter egos of Eric Young, Shark Boy, who is going through a Stone Cold phase during this time, and then Curryman. I do believe that Curryman in this deal was Christopher Daniels. Me as a kid, me at that age, I really did not put 2 and 2 together that, Christopher Daniels and Curryman were going to be the same one. Because this was the year that Daniels got that pink slip for the Feast or Fired, I believe. Yeah, that sounds about right. So he left, but he was still technically under contract, so they just brought him back as a different character, and that was indeed, Curryman. Ironically enough, Curryman would get fired just a few months later as Feast or Fired came back. It's really interesting. So, this matchup features a lot of pretty good action that I'll get into, but one thing I really did not like about it was the fact that the announcers, mainly Don West, made Christy Hemme seem like she was just a fragile little girl. Like she was just not exactly going to deliver too much into the matchup. They were saying like, oh, well, it's basically going to be 2-on-3. It's going to be the 2 of them against 3 of them because Christy's not going to be able to fight that much. And honestly, I disagree. She actually held her own in this matchup. I think that before Lucha Underground really made the whole men and women fighting each other seem cool, that Christy was definitely one of the few in TNA that was making it cool just to see that. We had a nice suicide dive, by Eric Young. Curryman actually forces Jimmy Rave to tag in Christy Hemme, and there was just a lot of there were a lot of sexual actions here because Curryman thought that he was a ladies' man. First thing that came to mind was the headlock that Christy Hemme did to Curryman. Curryman's kind of like moving his face around in her bosom. Curryman does like a wrist lock deal with Christy Hemme, and then we get waist lock with from Curryman on Christy. It was just really interesting set of deals here, but it was one of those things that made it a little bit entertaining. There actually came a moment later on in the matchup when the Rock and Rave Infection got their advantage. Christy and Lance Hoyt, they actually did this really great tag team move where Christy Hemme is in the electric chair position on Lance Hoyt. Then Lance Hoyt, brings her down. So Christy does a bit of a splash onto, I believe it was Shark Boy, if I'm not mistaken. Later on during the matchup, we see Curryman and Christy Hemme, they go at it again. Christy tries to go for like a slap to on Curryman. Curryman does this deal where he does a little dance with Christy Hemme, then does like a little dip kiss on Christy, and Christy is acting like, oh wow, that was actually really good. I liked it. Later on, we saw Christy Hemme do the I think it was the fiery leg drop, if I'm not mistaken. It's literally her doing a split from the second rope down on her opponent. It's a very, very good move, in my opinion. Christy would also then slap Shark Boy, which would cause him to hit the Chummer. Then we saw Eric Young. I'm always impressed by this. Super Eric, I should say. Sorry. Super Eric, he does this deal where he does a dual Death Valley driver. He did this to, I think it was Black Rain and Relic a few months prior. And then he does it again to, Jimmy Rave and Lance Hoyt. So I'm always impressed with the strength of Super Eric, a.k.a. Eric Young. And he just hits this dual Death Valley driver. Christy Hemme is knocked out from the Chummer. Curryman is checking on him, and it's kind of like the classic, Eddie Guerrero and Chyna deal where he just covers, and referee calls for the 3 count. The Brotherhood is basically trying to celebrate, but Curryman's like, no, I gotta check on Christy. Lance Hoyt would carry her to the back, and that kind of would be the end of that. I gave this first matchup a C+. I thought it was very entertaining. I thought it was very good. Not one of the better matches of the show, but it's honestly one of the better matches to actually start the show off with. So I kind of liked it. I thought it was pretty good. And it's really kind of cool to see these kind of gimmicks really still work well with the crowd. So, yeah, like I said, it was a good way to start off the show. Next up, we have Awesome Kong versus ODB in a Falls Count Anywhere matchup. One of the things I hated was that the announcer called it a special knockouts match. I hope that they don't do that ever again, but during this time, you didn't really see too many of these matches happening in wrestling. So, TNA was definitely starting to open the eyes of a lot of people, saying, hey, we can actually make, these women go hardcore, and they will deliver. I mean, you look at, Awesome Kong and Gail Kim. They had the Extreme Makeover Battle Royal. They have these matches with, ODP and Awesome Kong. They're really good. It's really just one of those things where they're starting to basically start the basic points of the women's revolution. And it did start, apologies, with these two here. No, it started with Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. Let's face it. Raisha Saeed, she got involved quite a few times. In fact, she actually started a pre-show assault on ODB, which would then allow Awesome Kong to take the advantage. When they're in the crowd, they kind of kept it pretty even between the two of them. We saw ODB get some momentum. We saw Awesome Kong get some momentum. It was kind of pretty dead set even. Later on during the matchup, we see a table set on one side of the ring in a corner, and we see a chair set up by ODB on the other side of the corner. So it's kind of one of those situations where they're basically trying to figure out, okay, who's going where. ODB and Awesome Kong, they're basically trying to Irish whip each other into either one of these areas. No one was taking it until Awesome Kong gets rammed into the steel chair, wedged into that corner, and it gets a close 2 count on on Awesome Kong. We see a table getting set up. ODB gets attacked by Kong. Kong goes up to the top rope. Looks like she's going to try and do that splash. Raisa Saeed is going to try and have a chair ready for Awesome Kong, but then ODB is able to go over to where Awesome Kong is climbing up and hits a power bomb on Awesome Kong. The table doesn't necessarily break, which kind of sucks, but it was one of those things where it still looked like a very brutal spot. It was one of those moments where it does really show, holy cow, where you do see ODB just taking a lot of momentum and a lot of damage. I mean, wow. We see ODB take out Saeed, but then it looked like she's going to get chokeslammed, but ODB is able to counter into a small package for a 2 count. But then here's where Awesome Kong gets very physical. She hits the splash in the corner, and then she does this huge backhanded fist on ODB, and it's just always brutal when she hits it. It just always looks like it's going to just knock somebody's block off. ODB would spit some booze into Awesome Kong's face. She would try to take the advantage, but then Awesome Kong is able to counter. She hits a Spinebuster on ODB on another table that was set up, and that is what causes the 3 count. Awesome Kong gets the victory. I give this one a bit of a B-. I really liked the hardcore moments in this matchup. It definitely told a good story between these two, in which basically they're trying to show who is the more dominant woman, who's the more dominant knockout in the division, who is the stronger of the two, and who's kind of like the alpha female. So it was really cool to kind of see that, and it was honestly a pretty good matchup. ODB held her own. Awesome Kong still looked pretty dominant. It was just a well-done match. I liked it. All right, so we go into a backstage deal in which we have Christian Cage talking about the 4 Ways to Glory matchup, and I really liked this promo. Basically, he talks about how there were a lot of doubters that said, oh, you're never going to make it to the top. You're never going to be the shining star. You're never going to be a main event level player. And he really talks about winning the world title for the first time, how he, wins it. He's holding on to it, and it's just kind of, glimmering and shiny. He just really loves looking at it. He talks about liking that title victory and that he wants that championship again. It's just a really, really good promo by Christian, because it definitely shows you that WWE definitely did misuse him quite a bit during his, I would say, during his, the last part of his first run. Because you look at it, he had a WWE Championship matchup on a pay-per-view, and he was doing pretty well for himself. The only reason why they added Chris Jericho was because they thought that Christian couldn't hold his own against John Cena. I disagree, and I still kind of want to see Christian versus Cena, now. I mean, oh my gosh, that would have been a huge dream deal. I know that, Christian has basically talked about the fact that he's retired now, but if Christian could come out for just one more matchup and face John Cena, honestly, it would probably work, because John Cena is a safe worker. We wouldn't have to worry about him, hurting Christian. I think that Christian would be in good hands. But I'm not trying to be that fan that's forcing him to be like, oh, you got to come out. It's like, no, if Christian wants to stay retired, he stays retired. I just would love to see him and Cena go against each other one more time. Next matchup we had is Matt Morgan and the Monster Abyss taking on Team 3D. And this is during the Abyss Asylum days, where basically after his feud with Judas Messias, he basically went into an asylum to basically reinvent himself, to not have to deal with the violence. And of course, during this deal, it's later revealed that the doctor, I think it was after a while, we would progress into the Dr. Stevie storyline, which of course a lot of people know is Steven Richards. So that was a little bit before that. Let's say maybe it was a bit longer before they got to the Dr. Stevie deal. But anyway, so basically Abyss's basic is just trying to be, do clean wrestling. He's not trying to do hardcore stuff. And Matt Morgan's trying to, kind of snap him out of it. But at the same time, I think he respects what he's doing. So Team 3D is basically just egging him on. They're basically trying to poke the bear that's sleeping, saying, you want to. It's like a drug. You want to. There's some really great tag team moves by Abyss and Matt Morgan earlier on. We see, the classic big man deals like a double suplex or double back body drop, stuff like that. But there's also a really funny blocking spot. Basically, Abyss is throwing Matt Morgan into Devon. But before he even gets to that, he does the Irish Whip, takes Matt Morgan over to the corner where Brother Ray is, and Matt Morgan actually hits Brother Ray's forearm to prevent him from disrupting the momentum before doing the splash. It's just so funny because you just hear Matt Morgan just clock that arm of Brother Ray, and Brother Ray's like, "Oh, F!" He just he just drops an F-bomb on TV. It's just so funny. 3D tries to do the whole nope, we're done, we're leaving, but Matt Morgan and Abyss, stop him. And then this would allow a distraction to be made, and they would work on Abyss's leg to kind of bring the big man down. Later on in the matchup, we would see Matt Morgan do an old school deal, but instead of doing like a double axe handle deal, we see him doing a crossbody. It's always a really cool thing to see a huge man like Matt Morgan do that kind of stuff. We get to the carbon footprint for the close to count, but Brother Ray, I should say. Jeez Louise. I'm either going to call him Brother Ray or Bully Ray. I'm just so used to that right now. But our Brother Ray pulls him out. Basically made it seem like, no, it was Abyss. Abyss pulled you out. Giant Divine gets involved, hits a chair shot on, I believe it was Matt Morgan for a kick out. And then we get an impressive Doomsday Device spot where Abyss is basically doing the whole punch in the corner to Devon, but then Brother Ray grabs Abyss. You definitely could see him trying to hold up Abyss as best he can for that electric chair spot. I think there's a moment where basically Brother Ray is just like, no, go. I can only hold him up for so long. And we see the Doomsday Device hit on Abyss. It's a very, very good spot, and it definitely shows the strength that Brother Ray had, but also shows the amount of pain that he had on his face. I guarantee you his face was red after holding up Abyss for that long. Abyss kind of teases like the chair shot deal on Devon. Morgan would punch Devon in the face with a steel chair, and then we would see a black hole slam on Devon for the victory. Post match, we see Brother Ray do a steel chair shot to Matt Morgan as well as the Monster Abyss, and Matt Morgan didn't even see who it was until he comes to. Already Team 3D has left, and Abyss is just holding up a chair, and Matt Morgan is just like, "Oh, you hit me with the chair, huh? You hit me with the chair, huh?" And Abyss is trying to explain, No, I didn't do it. It was them. Matt Morgan kind of leaves in a huff, and that kind of ends that deal. I gave this one a solid B. I thought it was a really good matchup. It definitely showcases Matt Morgan and Abyss as a team pretty well. It also shows the heel tactics of the team known as Team 3D. I liked it. I thought it was really good. Alright, so this is actually one of my favorite matches of the entire event. We saw the X Division title as Petey Williams defended against Consequences Creed. A lot of people know him better as Xavier Woods, and Sheikh Abdul Bashir. Now, when it comes down to it, we actually see Sheikh Abdul Bashir. Yep, he's heavily booed. Consequences Creed is pretty booed as well, but at the same time, they're in Canada, so that kind of, that kind of is to be expected. And we see, Petey Williams come out, getting a really good ovation, and yeah, the matchup itself is honestly really good. Earl Hebner is reffing the matchup, so we hear a lot of, you screwed Brett during the matchup, and I was just thinking, oh, poor Earl. He doesn't deserve this. There's actually a spot in the beginning where Creed does his whole punching deal to Sheikh Abdul Bashir, then he does a spin, does like a little weird split deal, and then he's able to do like the what he calls the honor roll, which is him doing like a somersault into a clothesline on Petey Williams. That was just really cool. Then there's another spot where he does like a leap over the top ropes onto Williams and Bashir on the outside. That was really great. Petey Williams would hit a slingshot knees into the inside of the ring and then follow that up with a slingshot on the outside to a Hurricane Rana on Creed. That was really cool. That was really nice. We see a dual leg drop by Creed onto both Bashir and Petey Williams for a very close 2 count. Petey Williams locked the sharpshooter on Sheikh Abdul Bashir. That was great. A lot of people were just hyping up the fact that, oh man, this could be awesome. This could be amazing. This could be, the night where where Petey Williams basically has like redemption for the Canadian crowd because they're in Canada. They make it seem like it's like the whole Bret Hart deal, and Earl Hebner's the referee. But in the end, Bashir is able to get to the bottom ropes. I have this deal where I have it written in my notes. I said Creed versus Petey, Rocky versus Drago. I think I compared what was going on here to, I think it was Rocky. I want to say it was Rocky 4, because Consequences Creed was kind of playing the role of Rocky, and Petey Williams kind of looked like Drago from that. I think it was the huge Russian guy. It really felt weird. They physically and costume-wise kind of looked like that. And I think that was kind of what they were doing. It was kind of one of those situations where it was like, well, Petey Williams is kind of the underdog. He's going to be a champion someday. He's going to be doing this. But he's got to take on, the veteran, the guy who's almost unbeatable, and that is in Petey Williams. There was even a promo package before the matchup even started where they were talking about, it was like him and his friends his trainer were talking about, well, he has to watch out for the Canadian Destroyer. He can't be hit by the Canadian Destroyer. If he doesn't get hit by the Canadian Destroyer, I think he's going to win. But unfortunately, Petey Williams does hit the Canadian Destroyer on Consequences Creed. Sheikh Abdul Bashir pulls out Petey, takes him out, and then covers Creed for the 3 count. And to get the victory, Sheikh Abdul Bashir is your new X Division champion. I gave this one a B+. It was a really good matchup. I absolutely loved it. It showcases really what the X Division is all about, especially during these older days in TNA. Next up, we have the Knockouts title, in which it was Taylor Wilde versus Angelina Love. Angelina has Velvet Sky and Cute Kip, formerly known as Kip James, formerly known as the Badass Billy Gunn, out there. And then Taylor Wilde comes out and says, hey, I have somebody here that's going to help even the odds. She brings out Rhino, who basically neutralizes Kip. And this matchup is kind of basic. There's nothing really too crazy about it. Tracy Brooks comes out as kind of the law of the Knockouts. And there's some points where it's kind of comedic what she's doing. She's doing this deal where, there's some moments where she's kind of looking on like, oh boy, I gotta write this down. Or there's some like impressive moments where she has impressed look on her face, and it's like, okay, I can see that. And she writes that down. We see a little bit of back and forth between Angelina Love and Taylor Wilde. And we see Velvet Sky making a difference quite a few times during the matchup. Rhino would hit Cute Kip with the gore, and then we would see Angelina Love. She's about to double team Taylor Wilde with Velvet Sky on the apron, but she's able to get out of the way, and Angelina Love is able to stop herself from hitting Velvet Sky. She's like, okay, we're good. Taylor Wilde hits a drop kick, knocking Angelina Love into Velvet Sky. Taylor Wilde hits a Northern Lights suplex, and that ends the matchup. Nothing really too special of a matchup. I gave it a C-. It's still a pretty decent match, but not a good matchup in and of itself. Just, I think that the whole deal where we see, geez Louise, all this interference and all this stuff kind of takes away from it. There's some moments where, you have interference and it works. I think what they did with Rey Mysterio and Andrade was okay, because it just was like in the last pivotal moments of the matchup. But this is where it got to be a little bit too much. And I think that really did hurt the matchup in and of itself. Alright, now let's get on to what I was referring to earlier with it being California. Let's talk about the Ladder of Love match between Jay Lethal, Black Machismo, and the Love Guru, Sanjay Dutt. So basically, the story built around this is the fact that Well, it's basically simple. Jay Lethal and SoCal Val, they were set to be married at Slammiversary earlier that year. Sanjay basically disrupted it and said, Val, I'm in love with you. Don't be with Jay, be with me. And this, of course, allowed Jay Lethal to just go absolutely crazy. And he just wants to basically destroy Sanjay Dutt. We actually see a matchup between Sanjay and Lethal at Hard Justice, I believe it was. It was like a tuxedo matchup. It was a tuxedo chain match, actually. They're both dressed up in tuxes. They're chained up. Jay Lethal got the better end of that matchup there. And then on an episode of Karen's Angle, we saw Val just completely distraught. And Sanjay is basically saying, oh, well, you don't have to pick, between me or Jay. I would never put you in that situation. Then Jay Lethal would attack Sanjay, but he would also inadvertently hit SoCal Val in the face. And then SoCal Val just says, you know what? I guess that punch to the face that hit to the face really brought me to my senses, because I'm going to put this ring on a pedestal above the ring, and we're going to have ourselves a little ladder match. The winner gets to marry me, basically. So that's kind of where this comes in. We have SoCal Val comes out. She's kind of, distraught. She's kind of trying to figure out, who she would rather have win and what would happen if, this person loses and blah, blah, blah. Sanjay comes out with a single rose to give to SoCal Val. Jay Lethal comes out with a big bouquet of roses. And it's kind of one of those things where I think I'll get into an issue that I had with this matchup a little bit later on. But early on, we see Jay Lethal hit his dragon suplex, and that just surprised the hell out of me. I'm like, whoa, really? Holy cow. Sanjay Dutt does a slingshot onto a ladder to toss Jay Lethal into the ladder. Oh, that's right. It was a deal where basically he tosses Jay Lethal into the top ropes, and then I think Jay Lethal gets his head caught in the ladder or something like that. Dutt does a swanton bomb of Jay Lethal, who is lying just flat on a ladder that's set up in the ring. That was a really cool spot. There's also this really brutal crotch spot with Jay Lethal, where I think I'm trying to remember. I think Sanjay countered a spot with Jay Lethal, and then Lethal. Oh, jeez. I think it was like one foot went through the rung, and the other one was on the outside of the rung. So he just crotches himself. It's just a really brutal spot where I'm just thinking, ooh, well, let's hope he doesn't need those in the morning, because they are just going to be black and blue. Another really cool spot was with Sanjay Dutt. He does a tree of woe with Lethal's head in the ladder. I thought that was another really cool spot. I thought it was great. They set up a ladder on the outside where it's like two chairs are set up and then the ladder's put up right there. And then Sanjay does a neck breaker on the ladder to Jay Lethal. Holy crap, was that brutal. Then we see a coquina clutch. Not coquina clutch. A camel clutch, I'm sorry. On Lethal on the top of a ladder. That was very innovative. But I had also had Lethal throw off Sanjay for a really cringeworthy spot. It just really sucked and it really looked like it hurt. Lethal's leg gets caught. He's actually screaming, hey, can somebody help me? Can somebody help me? And referee's trying to help as much as he can. This causes SoCal Val to get into the ring. She helps Jay Lethal get out, but she's still kind of distraught. She's still kind of thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Sanjay gets in, starts yelling at Val to basically, don't get involved, don't get involved. Sanjay's climbing the ladder, and then Lethal sees what's going on. He's climbed the ladder too. SoCal Val does a low blow to Jay Lethal, and then Sanjay gets the ring. Sanjay wins the Ladder of Love match, and SoCal Val, she just has this look of like, oopsie, and then she also just starts just smiling, has an evil grin on her, and then starts playing tonsil hockey with Sanjay Dutt. Holy mackerel. I mean, this was almost like Edge and Lita tumbler bait right here. Jeez Louise. I will also say this, that while they were kind of, celebrating, while they were happy, Sanjay escorts Val like closer to him, and SoCal Val actually steps over Jay Lethal. That was actually a really cool spot, especially for a heel. One thing that I will criticize about this is the fact that I think that this matchup definitely kind of gave away the ending just because of SoCal Val's reactions. I'm not trying to criticize that too much, but it's still one of those things where I think she's trying to look like she's, distraught, where she's just kind of thinking, well, I don't know who I want to pick, but it kind of came off as she really wanted Sanjay to win other than Jay Lethal. I think that it just kind of gave it away just a little too much, but in the end, I gave this one an A-. It was a really good matchup. The storytelling there was pretty spot on, and also, geez Louise, that ending is still unexpected. I'm still at that point where I'm like, holy crap, did that ending just happen? That's crazy. That's amazing. And I just wish that they would have done so much more with Sanjay Dutt, because it was kind of one of those things where it's like, Sanjay Dutt, he gets this win. What do we do with him next? Absolutely nothing, I guess. Just, wow. Just wow. That's all I have to say. Sanjay Dutt and SoCal Val, they could have done so much. They could have had like an X Division deal there, and they could have probably had like an ultimate feud with Jay Lethal and Sanjay for the X Division title. It just feels like it's a story that could write itself, but they chose not to. So, okay. Angle gets to talk about the main event matchup tonight. He talks about winning the world title again, but he also talks about Jeff Jarrett, and he says that he's ready for Jeff Jarrett to come out. Well, we shall see about that. Kurt. Time now for the tag team titles, as Beer Money, the new tag team champions, takes on LAX. And during this whole broadcast, they mentioned this deal where Jackie takes out Selena out of the equation. Selena is one of the managers for LAX, but so is Hector Guerrero. Hector Guerrero kind of gets involved in this matchup just a little bit. There's nothing really too much to say about this tag team match. This is kind of the early goings of Beer Money's, so they weren't exactly starting to put their best matches together yet. But this is kind of just one of those things where it's kind of like the feeling out process between the two teams. Homicide hit a really awesome top rope DDT. And I'm not talking like the one that Randy Orton does. No, literally it's like one of the guys is up there with Homicide, and then Homicide does like a DDT move from there. It was pretty brutal. Moment here is where Homicide looks to hit the beer bottle on Bobby Roode. Roode gets out of the way. Homicide breaks the beer bottle on the steps, and he makes it seem like, oh gosh, I hurt my hand, and like the bottle kind of cut his hand or something like that. After a couple bits of distractions, we see Homicide get the payoff on Bobby Roode for the victory. Beer Money retains. I give this one a C+. It wasn't exactly a very spectacular matchup, but it was good enough for what it was. Like I said, it's the early deals of Beer Money. They get better with their matches as time goes on. And of course, after this kind of evolves and goes into a four-way matchup at Bound for Glory, where they add Abyss and Morgan as well as Team 3D in it. And it's a four-way Monsters Ball matchup. And that matchup, holy crap, is that good. Definitely get a chance to watch that. Alright. Samoa Joe gets the chance to talk about... Oh, wait, nope. Hold on. Well, I'll talk about this. Samoa Joe has a backstage deal where he talks about the world title match, and he talks about Sting and how basically he wants to show Sting, respect, but he also has to remember that, he's traveling to all these cities and he's doing all these matches here and there. And what's Sting doing? He's being the highest paid wrestler to do absolutely nothing. it's one of those things where it does kind of hit a nerve, because it's one of those things where you realize, this is where Sting kind of was a part-timer, huh? So, I mean, nowadays we're really crucial on that, but I think back then it was just kind of like, no, he's Sting, he's a legend, it's fine. But now, before we get into the main event, I wish I could forget about this matchup. Oh boy, this was what the absolute Fred Savage was this? We had Frank Trigg versus AJ Styles in a submission / MMA match. Oh God. This was basically supposed to be kind of like a shoot fight, I guess, kind of like the Brawl for All. It's weird. It was really weird. Whoever decided to do this was just really dumb. I'm not even going to talk about this matchup because it just really, this was painful to watch, even for me. A lot of just chants of we want wrestling from the fans. Also, fire Russo, as well as this is bullshit. It's really bad. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I get it. You're trying to explore other things into into the world of wrestling. I just don't think that UFC and WWE really go well unless you're incorporating some actual really good character in it. And really, honestly, if you look at Frank Trigg's, TNA career, what did he do after this match? I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that he did absolutely nothing. At least to my knowledge. This matchup ended in a freaking no contest because AJ Styles accidentally kneed Frank Trigg in the balls. Frank Trigg got also beaten up by a kendo stick by AJ Styles. And that was the end of that. Well, this is one of the first few times I'm going to do this. But this is the first time I'm looking at an AJ Styles deal. I'm giving it a straight up F. This was just a failure of a situation. It sucked. It made no sense. It didn't progress any storyline. It just did absolutely nothing. And some people might say, well, it proved that AJ Styles is the best. Yeah, there's other ways that he could do that, though. This was not one of those ways. It was just bad. It was bad. Did I mention it was bad? Alright, so we get into the three-way match now for the world title as the main event. We have Kurt Angle and Christian Cage challenging Samoa Joe. Sting got a little bit involved before the matchup even started, before they even got to ring introductions. Sting came out, Samoa Joe and him kind of fought a bit. AJ Styles broke it up, and then they went into, the whole match announcement, as well as the the competitors, the introductions, and all that kind of stuff. I really do like these kind of deals when they just, have the, well, let me put it like this. TNA had a really huge knack for doing stuff like this. They basically talked about, hey, this matchup is for the world title, right here live in this home city. And they even started off with, this is your main event of, No Surrender. This is your main event of Bound for Glory. It was really cool. I liked that. And then they go into the introductions of, hey, here comes, challenger number one, or here's the challenger, here's the champion, and blah, blah, blah. All that kind of stuff. I liked that. It was really cool. We started off with Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe kind of double teaming. Not Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe. Christian Cage and Samoa Joe double teaming on Kurt Angle. There we go. Basically taking Kurt Angle out until it was just basically Christian Cage versus Samoa Joe. Really like the rivalry and the chemistry between these two, because it really does show how far these two have come, as well as jeez Louise, I just really like the chemistry between these two teams. Well, not the two teams, these two competitors. Christian got a belly-to-belly suplex by Kurt Angle on throwing him to the outside, and it looks like he hurt his knee early on. Samoa Joe would basically say, "Hey, Kurt, you can do 3 German suplexes. That's nothing. Watch what I can do to you with a German suplex." And it was a great sell by Kurt Angle, because Samoa Joe does like a German suplex deal, and Kurt Angle does like an inside-out bump deal, which was just absolutely brutal. Kurt Angle's able to lock in a double ankle lock, which is always really cool to see. Samoa Joe later on would hit the muscle buster on Christian Cage. Angle would get the referee distracted, allowing Christian to kick out when the referee finally got to the counting. Samoa Joe throws Christian Cage into Angle. It looked like Christian actually did like a suicide dive when he got thrown out, and it was kind of a cool spot. Then Samoa Joe does his I think a tope suicida deal where he leaps over and does a twist onto Angle and Samoa Joe. That's always a cool spot. Christian almost had the victory after hitting the unprettier on Samoa Joe. He gets a 2 count, but the referee gets pulled out, and Kurt Angle throws Earl Hebner head first into the steel guardrail. That was just a very brutal spot. Kurt Angle then would do like chair shot head city to Christian Cage, would hit a Angle slam to Christian Cage on the outside, well, to the outside, I should say. Then Kurt Angle would hit a steel chair shot to Samoa Joe, locking the ankle lock. Then out would come Jeff Jarrett. He would get involved, and he would hit Kurt Angle with the guitar, and then Samoa Joe would hit the muscle buster on Kurt Angle for the 3 count, retaining the world title. And we get Samoa Joe versus Sting at Bound for Glory, in which a lot of people know the result. Samoa Joe loses to Sting because of interference by Kevin Nash, and this would also be the start of the main event Mafia. Now, as far as this matchup goes, main event itself, I give it a solid A. It was a really good matchup between these 3 competitors. It definitely showcased them as just great world champions, and it really was one of those things where it does get sad to really think about the fact that this is the final time that Christian main evented a pay-per-view before he would leave the company a few months later to return to WWE. Alright, so the full evaluation and the final grading for No Surrender 2008, I gave it a solid B+. Other than, I think, Frank Trigg and AJ Styles in the MMA style matchup, other than the Knockouts title matchup, this was a pretty solid pay-per-view. You had some really great tag team matches. You had some pretty good singles matches. The matches that stood out to me were the main event, the Ladder of Love match, and the 3-way X Division matchup. Those were the 3 that definitely stole the show and made that show absolutely amazing. So with that being said, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this wonderful review of No Surrender 2008. You definitely know where to find me on Twitter. You know where to find me on Facebook. You also know how to listen to us on YouTube, Spreaker.com, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and of course, the one and only SoundCloud. I have been Nate the Effing Great. I am exhausted. I am tired. And tomorrow is going to be another fun-filled day. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.